And just like that, Sergio Mora, we have a new undisputed light heavyweight champion of the world, Artur Beterbiev, defeating Dmitry Bivol by majority decision. One judge had the fight a draw. Two other judges scoring it for Beterbiev, 116-112 and 115-113. This was a terrific fight, Sergio, from start to finish. Competitive, a battle between the two top guys in the 175-pound division. So there's a lot to unpack with this fight. Specifically the scorecards, which for Team Bivol did not go over all that well. But you watched the fight from home. What were your takeaways from it?
I thought Bivol fought a great first half of the fight. I think, it was a 5-1 type first half of the fight. Beterbiev couldn't do anything. I think Bivol is a master at range, keeping that range, the footwork, the jab, mixing up his combinations. It was great, man. The first half of the fight was all him. I just thought it was going to be an easy night for Dmitry Bivol. But then, of course, the second half of the fight went totally different. But I think the scorecards were wrong, Mannix. I mean, the scorecards were wrong. I think at worst, Bivol deserved a draw. At worst. But I thought he won this fight handily because the punches that were being landed in the second half of the fight were landing on the gloves. If you really think about the punches that Beterbiev was landing, and mind you, he's a monster puncher. He doesn't need to land cleanly. So yes, they were having their effect as the rounds went on, but they weren't breaking the guard. They weren't penetrating the guard, blocking the head back of Dmitry Bivol. So I couldn't give him total credit, or I couldn't give him the round so easily just because he was carrying off the gloves. I mean, if you remember Winky Wright, he made a career out of blocking punches. And then you get all these people, all these critics on social media saying, did you see Dmitry Bivol's face after the fight? Did you ever see Winky Wright's face after a fight that he won? It was all bruised up and red because that's what happens when you block your face with 10-ounce gloves against one of the biggest punchers in boxing. You're bound to get, reddened and bruised up. But they didn't land cleanly. So I wasn't giving them credit or rounds for the punches that were landing on the gloves. I was giving Bivol credit for defense and ring generalship and not allowing Beterbiev to get the combinations off. I don't see how the judges gave the fight to Beterbiev. I just don't.
So I scored the fight 114 even. I had the first 6 rounds even, first 3 for Bivol, last 3 for Beterbiev. I had Bivol up 6-3 after 9. I thought 7 and 8 were super competitive. I thought the 7th round, where Bivol was having a terrific round for like the first 2.5 minutes and then got a little bit greedy, Sergio, and got clipped towards the end of that 7th round. I thought that was maybe one of those swing type rounds. And then I gave Beterbiev 3 of the last 4. The 12th round was a true swing round for me. I edged it to Beterbiev. It could have gone either way, but that's how I came up with 114, a draw. I've got to give Bivol a ton of credit for being the first guy to be able to box 12 rounds with Beterbiev. You got to the midway point of the fight, Sergio. Even though I thought the fight was really close, if you had asked me then which one of the two fighters would I want to be, I would have said Artur Beterbiev, because for the entire fight, Bivol was fighting on the move. And even though Dmitry has some really solid, really great wins even on his resume, Canelo Alvarez, Gilberto Ramirez, he's never had to fight like that before. He's almost always been a front foot fighter who backs you up. Even Zerto, who's a physically bigger fighter than him a couple of years ago, Bivol was the front foot fighter for most of that fight. I didn't believe that Bivol was going to be able to continue. I thought this fight was going to wind up like a lot of Artur Beterbiev fights, like the Vostok fight or the Marcus Brown fight, where you see Beterbiev lose a couple of rounds early on, but then in the second half of the fight, he turns on the gas and winds up knocking his opponents out. But to Bivol's credit, his conditioning was excellent. His counterpunching was excellent. I did think, Sergio, that Bivol could have won maybe 1 or 2 more rounds on my card if he clinched more. I thought that was missing from his game. Like, he was willing to just kind of wing it out there with Beterbiev, and sitting there ringside, his corner during those tough moments for him was begging him to clinch. Like, over here in Riyadh, these cornermen are basically allowed to be in the ring, right? They're up on the ring apron and they're banging on the ring apron, so they're real close to the action. Bivol's corner was right there. They were saying to him, grab, clench, all in Russian, of course. I didn't really understand it, but they were making the motions to do that. So if Bivol was going to do anything tactically different, I would think that would be a part of it. But I did think he fought an absolutely brilliant fight where he lost because for whatever reason, Sergio, the judges, two of them anyway, saw the overall aggression and volume punching of Artur Beterbiev and determined that that was enough to win the majority of the rounds.
We're getting to a period in boxing where judges are starting to score ineffective aggression just because you have this monster puncher that's coming forward and throwing punches but not landing. Something has to be fixed right here, because that is not effective aggression. If you're not landing the big shots, and mind you, this is a monster puncher. If a monster puncher is not landing his monster shots, then we have to give credit to Bivol for moving around the ring generalship, and defense if he has his hands up. The only thing I didn't like about Bivol is two things, and I was talking to my trainer, Dean Campos, about this, and he made an excellent point. He was blocking shots. Even though his hands were up, he was blocking the shots. So he was giving the impression to the judges that Beterbiev was actually landing some shots when they were pairing off the gloves. That's one. Two, if you're gonna mind your defense like that, you gotta make fighters completely miss. They gotta hit air. That's how you get the judges' attention to give you credit for defense. Either step back and have them miss completely, or clinch, like you're talking about, and back him up. That's what me and my trainer were talking about. The fact that he didn't make Beterbiev miss completely. And in the inside, you know what monsters don't like, Mannix? They don't like being walked backwards, man, because they're not accustomed to taking a step back. They go forward and forward and forward, seeking and destroying. When you clinch them and you back them up, you make them back up, they're unaccustomed to that. But that you need to work in the ring in sparring against bigger sparring partners. So those are only two things that Bivol should have done, is make him miss completely with defense and back up the monster, the older legs. Get that surgery. I mean, he had surgery in his knee, Beterbiev. You had to force that knee backwards. Whatever. That's in the past. I still think Bivol did enough to win this fight. I'm not crying robbery, but I still think he deserved the nod.
I think it wasn't a robbery. It definitely wasn't a robbery. You can sit there and say, like Eddie Hearn did, that the 116-112 scorecard was egregious, and I'm inclined to believe that. Finding only 4 rounds to give to Dmitry Bivol just doesn't really pass the smell test. But let me give you some of the numbers, Sergio, to sort of illuminate how close this fight was. Both fighters were separated by 4 or less punches, landed punches, in 8 of the 12 rounds. You look at the final few rounds that Beterbiev needed to win. I want to get to something that his corner said in just a minute, but in the final few rounds 10 through 12, Beterbiev landed 15 of 68 punches per round in 10 through 12. Bivol landed 50% of his power punches, while Beterbiev landed the harder punches that averaged 57 thrown per round. Overall, Bivol connected on 50% of his power shots. They were landed clean, while Beterbiev landed only 29% of his, speaking to your point of him throwing a lot of power shots, but Bivol's defense being sharp and holding him to that low percentage. Something we talked about on the air on DAZN, I'm not sure if it came across on ESPN Plus or to the U.S. broadcast, but I believe it was entering round 10 where Beterbiev's corner said to him in Russian that he needed to knock. You need a knockout to win. There you go. So it did get picked up there. Said he needed to get a knockout to win. That tells me they knew what was going on there in the ring, that they knew their guy was down pretty big. To Beterbiev's credit, Sergio, he did surge. I thought he won the 10th and 11th round pretty clean. Like, I thought he won those rounds. And then the 12th, kind of a coin flip. I edged it to Beterbiev. Some people gave it to Bivol. But what do you think when you hear a corner say going into the 10th round, those championship rounds, close to those championship rounds, that your guy needs a knockout?
It's a rarity. I mean, 9 times out of 10, when your corner tells you need a knockout to win, you're losing the fight. 9 times out of 10. All right. So they knew they were behind in that fight. Now, mind you, I love what Beterbiev told you inside the ring. This is a man that has 100% knockout ratio. Of course, they always tell him he needs a knockout to win because he knows nothing else. No, don't get fooled, man. Don't get fooled on this one. Beterbiev and his team knew they needed a knockout to win, and I feel they needed at least a knockdown in order for Beterbiev to have won this fight. But it turns out he didn't need neither because the judges saw a different fight. It was sad. I wanted Bivol. He worked hard. The first half of the fight was all him. The second half of the fight.
Yeah, but can it be sad if it's not a robbery? like we just said, both of us, that it's not a
Man,
robbery. It was a close, competitive fight.
when it's for all the belts and the four
I agree
belts,
with that. Yeah.
it's history. Yes, it's tragic. It's sad. This is gonna eat up at Dmitry Bivol for the rest of his career. I'm telling you, man. It gets to fighters. That one night is gonna stay with him the entire forget career, his entire life, man. Anytime someone brings up that fight for undisputed, where history was watching, the whole world was on Riyadh watching this fight, and it didn't go in his favor, that's going to eat him up inside, man. I'm telling you, every fighter knows what I'm talking about.
It is brutal, no doubt about that. Like Bivol has been waiting for this opportunity really since like 2018 when Beterbiev burst on the scene as a world champion. Bivol was a title holder a year later. I mean, this fight has been like almost a decade in the making. And if not for, Riyadh season and Turkey Al Sheikh, if we're being honest, it probably wouldn't happen because the purses just, there wasn't the audience out there with pay-per-view or with ticket buyers to support this kind of fight, support the kind of purses that they would want for it. So it is, I'm sure, gut-wrenching. That being said, like, is a rematch not the most obvious fight for both of them? Like, they remain the two top guys at 175 pounds. With all due respect to guys like Joshua Buatsi and David Benavidez and David Morrell, it still is Beterbiev and Bivol. Top two guys, two top 10 pound-for-pound guys. Like, I didn't really get a clear answer from some of the promoters involved or even the fighters themselves about a rematch. Now, it would be an expensive rematch, no doubt about it, and we'll see if Turkey Al Sheikh has the appetite to make a fight like that. But for me, like, you just had 12 highly competitive rounds. You're two of the best at 175. Why not run it back in March or April of next year for all the marbles again?
Probably the same reason that Felix Trinidad and Oscar De La Hoya didn't run it back. It was too expensive. It wasn't really that great of a fight, a physical fight. I'm talking about the Oscar De La Hoya and Trinidad one. And I could say similar in this one. I could see similarities in this fight. Yes, it was a great tactical fight. Yes, it was a nice swing of momentum between a puncher and a boxer. But no one got knocked down. There was no blood involved. No one really got seriously hurt. So it doesn't really whet my appetite to see it again, especially when each fighter is getting 10 million plus to make this fight. So I think we got what we got. It was an excellent fight. It wasn't a barn burner. It's not going to go down in the annals of history as one of the greatest fights ever, but in undisputed. But it was a highly competitive fight between two of the best fighters in that division, and it was a close decision all the way to the end. But no, I don't think we need to see it again. I don't think we need to see it again. I would like to see it again.
What do you want to see, right? Like, I mean, I get it. Like, the winner of Benavidez Morrell is a mouth-watering opponent for Artur Beterbiev. Like, I would definitely love to see that fight. But that fight is currently scheduled for what, like January, maybe
okay.
It runs up in February.
Well, I know I've said this before and it sounded nuts, but the way I've seen it today, it doesn't sound nuts to ask Canelo to move back up to 175. It does.
So there's the question. That was
not crazy. I know. I got a lot of criticism when I said that Canelo needs to go through the triple Bs, not the triple G, the triple Bs, and Beterbiev being one of those Bs. At 39 years old, almost 40 years old, what I've seen today, yes, he's still a menace in the second half of the fight, but he can be controlled in the first half of the fight. Canelo has better head movement. I think it would be an excellent fight. That's the fight. Sign me up for that one. That's the one I want to watch.
I don't know. I don't know if I want to see that. Like, Beterbiev is so big, man.
We
like,
need to
he rehydrates.
Canelo that question.
Well, I think Canelo's had opportunities in the past to fight Artur Beterbiev. It's been Dmitry Bivol that he's been targeting, and the one he did actually fight. Like, Bivol had success because he moved. Canelo's not a mover. Like, Canelo would, want to, Canelo's another guy that would want to walk you down. Like, if he gets backed up against the ropes, against the puncher like Beterbiev, I don't see that fight going well for Canelo. I can't see Canelo wanting to go anywhere near that. Do you? Like, I don't know. Like, he's never brought it up, right? Like, so Canelo to me is like, it's either Terrence Crawford. We saw Chris Eubank Jr. pick up a win on this card. Like, those are the two most likely candidates. Although Chris Eubank Jr. Clearly headed towards a fight against Conor Benn. That is the obvious fight to make.
All right, maybe I'm dreaming on that fight. So then I'll love to see David Benavidez in that fight and Beterbiev and Benavidez. That's an easily a fight that everyone want to watch and the type of fight that will be a barn burner. What we didn't get in physicality in this fight, we'll definitely get it in that fight. But either way, man, I'm interested in seeing the future of Beterbiev. It's not going to be a long future, I mean, this man is 39 years old, almost 40, but he's still undefeated. His knockout ratio got, bumped. He's not 100% knockout, puncher, but he did it against one of the best boxers in the world. So I think if he goes back and fights another puncher, he's going to get back on the knockout streak.
I'll give it to Bivol, too. He took the loss like a man. He didn't complain about it. He said, look, congratulations to Artur. He won the fight. I'm disappointed, but that's kind of the way it goes. If there's not a rematch for Dmitry Bivol, like, what do you want to see Bivol in? Like, the fact that he no longer has a title takes away a lot of his appeal to prospective opponents. Like, Canelo's not going to be interested in Dmitry Bivol at like 168 for his belts. Like, that does nothing for Canelo Alvarez. Joshua Buatsi would probably push for a fight against Beterbiev before he did against Bivol. Like, maybe you wait around for the loser of Benavidez against Morel. That's probably a pretty good fight, but that's, summer at the earliest. And, who knows, with both those guys being PBC fighters, who knows how difficult it is for that fight to make. Like, what does Bivol do from here? Where does he go from here? Because he might have, I had heard from people around Canelo this week that Canelo was dead serious about taking on Bivol in his next fight. If Bivol had won that title, I think he would have rocketed to the top of the line for Canelo Alvarez opponents. Now, he's kind of looking around, probably hoping for the rematch. If he doesn't get it, it might be a lower level fight his next time out. Where does he go from here?
Well, I could tell you that the amount of money that Dmitry Bivol has made in the last three fights is life changing. So he's set up for life. I don't think he's going to be in a hurry to go into a fight if it's not going to be a mouth-watering fight with a mouth-watering payday behind it. So he's going to have to make a lot of sense and a lot of money for Dmitry Bivol to stay busy, or else he's just going to wait for another big name. He'll wait for a Benavidez Morel winner. He'll wait for a Canelo winner. He'll wait for another big name instead of just staying busy. Whenever you start getting paid 10 million and 10 million plus, that money gets good to you, and you rather wait, especially when you've already proved everything you could prove. He didn't get overwhelmed or run down by a monster and Beterbiev. It was a competitive fight. So I think it's smart for him to just stay on the sideline and see what else comes by. I mean, the money's going to be there, but now he's a prize fighter, Mannix. He's not a champion or a former champion. Dmitry Bivol is a prize fighter. He needs to wait for the prize to come his way.
Yeah, but he's a prize fighter that doesn't have a huge fan base behind him.
But he has youth on his side, Mannix. He has youth on his side.
Well, he's almost 34 years old. Youth?
Yeah.
Compared to Beterbiev.
Compared to
you.
Compared to Beterbiev and Manny. So he's never taken a physical beating. He's not a physical fighter. 34, still young. He's still fighting behind a jab and moving nicely. I think he has 3, 4, 5 years left in his career. Right now, he can bide his time for the big paydays because he moved up in pay grade, man. So he's not a $1 million fighter, a $5 million fighter. He's a $10 million fighter now, and he can wait and just even though he lost, he could still wait.
You might be dreaming about a $10 million payday for Dmitry Bivol, unless it's an Artur Beterbiev fight or a Canelo fight. Those paydays,
or a Benavidez Morel.
Maybe Benavidez, but like Benavidez Morel, without the title, it's just not as lucrative for him. I think if he's looking for that type of payday, he's going to be on the sideline for a long time. For boxing's sake, I would love to see a rematch. Just do the rematch in March or April. See if you can settle it. We just saw as the co-main event, like Fabio Wardley emphatically settled the rivalry with Frazier Clark. First round knockout, that was over. That was a wrap. No dispute there. Like, I'd love to see him and Beterbiev get back in the ring, do it one more time. And like I said on the air on DAZN, like, this could be a trilogy. Like, these two guys who are pretty evenly matched, both with very different styles. We could get a terrific boxing trilogy out of them. I hope we go more in that direction. All right, Sergio, I have to go get a plane out of Riyadh. You have to go into your backyard and drink beer. We'll do it again later in the week.
Carne asada time.